think about this. Controlled demolitions cannot be engineered and rigged in a day. It takes months. And therefore, this event must have been planned in advance.
Keep your eye on that building. It'll be coming down.
The building is about to blow up. Moving back. We are walking back. There's a building about to blow up.
Did they actually use the word brought down, and who was it that was telling you this?
In the fire department, and they did use the word, we're going to have to bring it down. They did use it.
Well, everybody's quiet again, so I'm going to introduce Mitoa Edjang. He's the real McCoy. He's an airline pilot. He flies heavies. Heavies are what they call the big sort of planes that were allegedly used on 9/11. Very, very different from small planes in every way. Mitoa, I'm just going to hand it over to you.
Okay. Well, first of all, I have to say I come from Spain. So although I spent many summers in Chester to learn English when I was small, and then I spent 5 years in the US training as a pilot, my English is getting rough. So I live in Spain. I've been living for the past 13 years and flying for a major airline over there. I'm a captain right now since 6 years ago. So it seems like somebody trusts me. I don't know if they'll do after, saying what I'm going to say right now, but I hope so. Well, I came prepared to give like a long speech in a detailed thing, and I think that the best thing I can do is just give you a different perspective of 9/11. 4 planes, and it seems like the best pilots got in the plane that crashed into the Pentagon, and I do not believe so. And that's why I'm here, and that's why I know Ian, and that's why in Spain I'm also giving speeches, and also in Spain after being getting really angry, I got my own radio show, and I'm doing right now then programs every Wednesday basically that I load into the internet, and in Spanish I'm giving to the Spaniards all the information that I get about 9/11 and about how governments basically, like Rourke said, they don't protect you. Basically, they're here to maintain the status quo. So that's what my the programs are all about. And the first thing that I popped into my head when I was preparing the speech was that I don't buy it. I do not buy the story, the official story. Why? Because I do fly. Because I've been flying since I'm 18 years old. Right now I have more than 12,000 hours in different types of airplanes. I taught people in the US. I got more than 20 kids to make their dream possible. That was to fly in a small airplane, which is a completely different story to fly a big airliner. And so I took people from, right from the beginning without, any knowledge, no knowledge at all of how to fly a plane, and got them to the point where they could at least know what was going on if they stepped into the cockpit of a big airliner. I have to say something. Once you finish the basic training, you're nobody. Nobody wants you, and that's where my story starts. And I don't buy it. These are the 6 points that I'm going to be talking about. Basically, we're losing our grip of reality, and it seems like right now we are starting to get, we're all, I don't know, it's just crazy. And, the things that seem to be true right now, they're not true. Suddenly planes fly into buildings, and buildings collapse because of fire and because of planes, something that never happened before. Suddenly a guy, just right off flight school with a really bad curriculum that nobody would want, suddenly flies, not just one, but 4 of them get in 4 planes, and they all hit, their targets. That doesn't even happen, not even in the Luftwaffe, okay? And that doesn't happen in the US Air Force, and that doesn't happen in my Air Force, okay? That's just, the guy said it's an impossibility, okay? That doesn't exist. Why? This is the first picture we took on a party when we got our private pilot license, and there, most of these guys, 2 of them are dead. The other ones are in Alitalia. Me, I'm in Iberia. And these are just like the pictures that you would see of Hani Hanur, for example, the guy that I'm going to speak now, with their friends having beers, okay? And, well, it seems like they even took cocaine, which I don't do. I pass every 6 months a test, so I can't do drugs. But they did, or at least it seems like, most of the hijackers took even drugs. This is the first plane you will get in if you are a student. This is a Cessna 152. This is one of the smallest airplanes. It weighs even less than 1,000 kilograms. Difficult to fly, okay, but not as difficult as to fly a 757. This is one of the flights that I used to take when I was flying out of Princeton in New Jersey in the States. And I used to take my students, the advanced ones, to fly right beside the Twin Towers. But this is one of the pictures that I took, and I used to take the students out for a flight. And there used to be a VFR, so you can fly visually and fly right beside the Twin Towers. And is it difficult to strike the towers? Flying at 500 knots, it is almost impossible. It happened 2 times on the same day, and then another one on the Pentagon. Impossibility. This is the plane that I fly now, and the airline that I do fly for. I'm a captain, like I said, in this plane. 90 seated to 100 people, and that's about 30 to 37, 40 tons. Now, if I want to apply for a job right now in Spain, we are, going through a really rough time. I will have to actually send a curriculum to an airline. For example, let's say Jet2. This is the Scottish airline that flies 757s, and they fly from Scotland, England, all the way down to the Canary Islands to have, so you guys can have beers and sun, okay, and sunny beaches. Now, the funny thing about this is a looking to hire. Well, I'm looking for a job. Yes, first officer. So that'll be. I was a first officer, used to be. Now I'm a captain, and this is the minimum hours that anybody, okay, basically any airline right now will require for a guy to sit on the right side. That is to assist the captain in anything, in everything. Now, total time. It's a minimum of 1,000 hours of total time that they will require. Okay, and this is. In April 2013, things haven't changed. If you don't know how to fly, if you have really low hours, they will not hire you. And this is the same, the same application, but in a bigger, scale. Now, again, minimum requirements. Okay, we're just talking about the minimum, just to let you fly on the right seat. So sometimes you'll have the captain saying, don't even touch anything because you don't know. Nothing. You know nothing about a plane, basically. This is a co-pilot, yeah. So the minimum to fly in England right now, Jet2 flying great people all the way down to the sunny beaches of Spain, it's just to sit on the right side on the 757. This is the one that Hanur flew. It's a minimum 1,000 hours total time, minimum of 500 hours on the 757. That has to be within the last 2 years, and I wanted to, remind these numbers because they will pop up later, so that you'll get a different perspective of what really happened and if it is viable to for these kids to do what they did. Okay, I did apply for this job. So also you need an ICAO. This is the standard for English. Okay, International Civil aviation, okay, or organism. You need a level 5. That is 6 is bilingual. I got a 6. I don't know how, but I did. Okay, so I did apply for this job. Now, if I want to join, for example, VA, British Airways, suddenly things get a little bit, rough or rougher or more difficult. Okay, because British Airways is the crown, the jewel of the crown. Yeah, coming from the clockwork and slightly antiquated 737-200, this lady to see, okay, as a first officer on a 777 was required 2,500 flying hours before they even consider her to fly, okay, to get her on a training of 6 months and putting her to fly for British Airways. This is the jewel of the crown. So the other airline was a charter airline. This is the Joule. 1,000 minimum, 500 on the type. Okay, 1,000 minimum, 500 type, and this is 2,500. I did apply for Qantas. I can apply over there because I don't have a work permit, but what do they require? Minimum 500 hours of in command. Okay, so at least you need to be captain 500 hours, or otherwise, then they will require you 200 hours in command, but 1,000 of first officer. Okay, again 1,000, and then you'll need 250 more, or you have to be, type rated. So if you want to fly the 380, you at least will need 500 hours in the 380. Nobody in the world basically has that time other than the test pilots from Airbus. Okay. Now Emirates, I did apply also to Emirates, and Emirates is right now asking first officer. This is the again the jewel of the crown in the United Emirates, United Arab Emirates. Okay, they required 4,000 hours total flight time. Now I wonder why, if I can fly a 757, what are these major airlines wasting their time and their money? Because why are they asking me for 4,000 hours of total time, 1,000 or 1,500, when they can get Hani Hanur's training, okay, of 250 hours, and get a guy to cross a plane into the Twin Towers or into the Pentagon? Are they just plain stupid, or are they crazy? They want to lose money, or maybe they understand that somebody, until they get to the 1,000 hours, is somebody that will not be able to fly basically a complicated aircraft in a complicated environment and do a complicated navigation. Okay, 9/11 report says that Hani Hanur was the best trained of all the pilots, all the hijackers of 9/11. If he's the best trained, okay, I'm Superman. Okay, right now you're watching Superman. Right now, okay, or after this, I will fly out of this room. Okay. My American experience, because I went to the US in 1994 and I spent 5 years in the US. Okay, so I did exactly the same thing that Hanur did. Actually, I know people that know the group of Hani Hanur, and actually I went to the same places where he trained, asking for a job as a flight instructor. That's the funny thing. And even it's so funny, or it gets as funny as in Spain we have one pilot from Air Europa who actually was the teacher of one of the hijackers, and he said he even wrote a book, and he says they didn't even know how to do a spiral with a Cessna 152. Okay, the Cessna 152 is the one that I showed you, and then a big airplane, 757, is 95 tons. It's 95 times heavier than a Cessna 152. Impossibility. My experience was I took training in this school. I do not recommend it. Okay, do not go over there. Don't send your kids over there. Southeastern Flight School. Lucky enough, it doesn't exist anymore. Okay, it was run by a crook, and it run the business into the ground. But I spent 5 years over there, from '94 to 2000, basically. And I did my private pilot license. I took my instrument, my commercial license over there, also the instructor license. So I was an instructor, flight instructor, and actually one quite good. I know that my grandmother died, so I have to tell me good things. I also was a flight instructor from '96 to 2000. I flew out of Los Angeles, for example, Atlanta. I flew right over the JFK airspace. Okay, so one of the most complicated airspace in the world. I flew out of Philadelphia, so I know what they're talking about when they speak about a well-trained pilot. I got my ATP, which is the Airline Transport Pilot license, in the US in '98, and I went back to Spain in 2000, where I was again a ground instructor for 1 year in the National School of Aviation over there, ENA. Now, all of us in the US, we have to take at least the minimum to get a commercial pilot license, which is the one that Hani Hanur had. You have to train for at least 250 hours as a pilot. Okay. This is for a single engine rating, okay, and these are the regulations of the US. So he went the same training that I went through, although he did it a lot worse than I did, okay? Now, if you want to fly a multi-engine airplane, then it's the same thing. Airplane category multi-engine, okay? You must log at least 250 hours of flight time as a pilot, okay? And then you have all the glossary, then you have all the, the things that you have to do. For example, you have to go, let's say, there you go, 50 hours in cross-country flight, of which at least 10 hours must be in airplanes. So you have to go through the US 50 hours, and then after that, you really don't know, and I'm not gonna use that word. You basically know your basics, okay, to go from one place to the other. Basically, that's it, okay. Hani Hanur, and I'm gonna show you later, had a book just like this. When you say log, it's because you have to write it in a book. This is mine, and this is actually the one that I was using in the US, where it has even all the remarks from my flight instructor saying if I did well or not. And this is another let's say, the evidence that you will have to, or that you need to keep in mind, okay? Because this is Hani Hanur, okay? The problem with this kid is that he went through the same training that I went. So in early 96, Hanur students enrolls to study English in North California. And then also he enrolls in an aeronautics academy, okay? He takes English lessons on an intensive program, required 30 hours. And then actually, if you read down here, after this course, to which he just went to 2 hours, okay, he took one of his flight lessons, actually an oral exam. It took him, yet in 2001, managers of the Arizona Flight School will report him to the FAA at least 5 times, partly because they think his level of English is inadequate for him to keep his pilot license. Due to his poor English, it will take Hanur 5 hours to complete an oral exam meant to last 2 hours. This is in February 2001. This is just 6 months basically prior to flying the planes into the Twin Towers. He doesn't know how to speak English. That's 2001, period. Okay? Now, what else he does? In April 1999, he gets his pilot license despite lack of skills. And it's not me, Mitoa, saying this. It's actually the people that train this kid. And it's actually the government of the US saying these things. You can find all these brief notes through the 9/11 report, and you can find all these brief notes all through ABC, CBS, and any newspaper you want, okay? Now, I'm just gonna go through the bold letters here. Between 96 and 98, a weak student, okay, was wasting our resources. That's what the flight training facility says. He had only the barest understanding what the instruments were there to do. So he's a really really bad student. Now, this is Hanur's, when he gets the commercial pilot license, says his new license allows him to begin passenger jet training. This is the key point of everything, okay? Remind, or at least, come back to the figure, 1,000 hours to fly, if I want you to, I will let you just, lower and rise the gear if you have at least 1,000 hours of flight time. This kid has 250, and he's a really bad student. Well, this is what they say at the Jet Training Center. They say, despite he began passenger jet training at other flight schools, obviously because they kicked him out of this one, despite having limited flying skills and an extremely poor grasp of English, just like mine. This is the Federal Aviation Administration on a report on 2002. It's not me, it's the government. Okay, it's the it's the facility saying this. It's the school saying that he doesn't have a clue of what he's doing. If you read here, since Hanur pilot skills were so bad, the issue is how he was able to get a license on the first place. I mean, who gave this kid a pilot license? Because he wasn't training and he wasn't capable of flying a plane. Okay, now who is saying this? Washington Post and CBS. But also, since Hanur pilot skills were so bad, the issue of how he was able to get a license remained a lingering question that FAA officials refused to discuss. Okay, so we have a group that I belong to, which is called 9/11 Pilots for Truth, for 9/11 Pilots for 9/11 Truth, and they're really active in the U.S. Here in England, it seems like they're not that much, and I'm one of the few in Spain. And we all send letters to our civil aviation departments, administrations, asking the same question. Well, obviously in Spain they refuse to say anything because they don't know, English, period. So that's my problem. But anyhow, in the U.S. they just don't want to talk about this. Okay, December the 12th, 2000 to March 2001 in Arizona. I'm going to go back to that jet training. Okay, and it says this: spends time, Hanier. Okay, this is the best pilot of all of them. Okay, 250 hours. Now he's getting a little bit more. He gets out of the U.S. in 1999, 1998, and comes back in 2000, 2001. And this is what they say about Hani Hanier, okay? Spends time training at Arizona Aviation Flight School, getting jet training, which he previously attended in January 98, okay? And then, according to the 9/11 Commission, he wanted to train on multi-engine planes, but had difficulties because his English was not that good, wasn't good. The instructor advised him to discontinue. His instructor, remember that we have logs. I mean, this is all written down, okay? It's not me making up anything at all. It's the FAA with the records, okay? Because they do keep them. Because I have my records, although I don't fly since 2005 and 6 in the US, they keep all my records, okay? And they say this: January and February 2001, flight school repeated warnings about Hanier ignored by the FAA. And again, I'm just gonna, if you bear with me, I'm just gonna read a little bit of these lines. Flight school jet tech alerts FAA about hijacker Hani Hanier, why lacks both the English and flying skills necessary for the commercial pilot's license he has already obtained. And actually that license was expired because in 2001 he didn't go through a medical examination. We have to go, now I'm about 40, so I have to go twice every year. Mm-hmm. And then he was under 40, so he had to go at least once to get his first class medical certificate renewed. So his pilot license was expired, so actually the school was doing wrong. But he knew also that he was doing wrong. But the problem is not that. The problem is fail his English, okay, classes with a 0.26 grade point average. Didn't know how to speak English at all. I'm still to this day amazed that he could have flown into the Pentagon. He could not fly at all. The FAA verifies that Hanier's 99 pilot license is legitimate, and but takes no further action, despite 5 warnings from the flight school. Okay, and then he says, however, his license should have been rejected because he had already expired in late 1999. He failed to take a mandatory medical test. In February, Hanier begins advanced simulator training, a far more complicated task than he had faced in earning a commercial license. And again, the school gives 5 alerts. The FAA is not told about Hanier. Well, that's normal in the US because they believe in freedom, so usually different government branches don't talk to each other, okay? But the unusual thing is to have a school giving 5 warnings at least because somebody doesn't know how to fly a plane and they don't believe that that license is true, okay, it's real. So they call the FAA, and the amazing thing is the FAA goes back, takes a test to Hanier, gives a test to Hanier, and actually the FAA examiner tells the guys at the school to place a translator with Hanier as he flies so that he can understand what the flight instructor is saying. You're not allowed to do that, okay? You need to speak English if you want to fly in the US and if you want to take a course in the US. So he doesn't know how to fly, he doesn't know how to speak English, and even so, he manages to get a plane 95,000 times heavier than the one that he used to not fly, because he was really bad, and manages to do an incredible spiral, downward spiral, okay, all the way into the face of the Pentagon. Impossibility. And this is the best pilot they had. It is an impossibility. Not even me right now with 12,000 hours, okay, not even me, would be basically, on a good day, I would manage to do it, okay? But on a bad day, without a coffee, probably I will miss, okay, the Pentagon, maybe because I will dive the plane into the ground, because we also had to speak about the final profile that he flew, which is also unbelievable. Not even, okay? The best aerobatic pilots could do that, okay? Bueno, let's go with this. There you go. This is amazing, you know, the last stone, no? The last amazing thing. August 2001, okay? Remember, this is just 1 month before this kid will fly a plane like, you know, like a fighter pilot and smash it into the Pentagon. And this is what they told him, okay? Hanur, my friend, goes to Freeway Airport in Maryland, and he tries to rent a single-engine Cessna airplane, just like the one I showed you at the beginning. That's why I told you this is a Cessna 152, the one that I used to train kids on. 2 instructors take him on 3 test runs. So let me ask you, what do you think that happened? Fail. Okay. Pues he is not allowed to rent one of their planes without more lessons. Why? Because although it appears he logged 600 hours, nobody knows where he took that training, because there are no records of that. So it's a lie. He says, let me see this, no, experience, he possesses a valid pilot license. He refuses to provide contact information, and due to his poor skills, therefore, he is not allowed to rent the airplane. Poor skills flying a plane. That's it, 5 minutes, okay. This is a funny statement, okay, and then he retracted of this statement. There is no doubt in my mind that once got going, he could have pointed that airplane at the building. That pointed the plane at the building. Okay. Well, that's impossible, because you don't only need to fly the airplane. You need also to manage the flight management system, which is a computer in the airplane, which is not programmed to do the maneuver that Hanur did. I say this because many people says, what if he just flew on autopilot and he just programmed the plane to fly the plane into the Pentagon? Okay. I do that, you know, I fly an airplane that has an FMS. It's called a flight management system. And it is all the systems, all the navigation systems put together with the autopilot so that the plane will be able to do something. That's impossible, because a maneuver, descending spiral, okay, with 260 degree turn, descending, increasing the speed, okay, down and losing 2,500 feet, the autopilot is not, you can't program the autopilot to do that. It's not feasible, okay? Because on those dates, the FMS of the 757 wasn't able to do that. And then you want me to believe that after being denied, okay, a Cessna 152, 1 month later, he's going to take, okay, a plane and smash it into the Pentagon? I tell you that no, that's not possible. Okay, instrument pilot syllabus. What I'm going to talk to you basically is I'm going to just take you really quick through what a logbook is, basically. And it's this small book in which you log all your flying hours and all the, comments that your flying instructors want to tell you. I certify that Mr. Edjang has satisfactorily completed the course of instrument required by blah, 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 blah. Okay? And this is the funny thing about Hanur and his logbooks. Remember the 250 hours we talked about at the beginning to get your private pilot, your commercial license? This is the logbook of Hanur. This is the same thing that you have here. This is mine, and that's his. And you'll see that it has the same layout. Okay, this is the upper portion of it. Okay, and this would be the down portion of it, just like a regular logbook. Okay, and we see that he. Let me see what it is. Down here, we see that he has 249.7 hours of flight. Okay, with these, in '99 he gets his commercial license. 98.99. This is his commercial license. Okay, the same one I have. I have an ATP, an airliner license, and this is Hani Salem Hanur. So he really actually got a license, and with that he went to get, this is the, remember the medical, the first certificate that was expired, so he shouldn't be flying. With this he enrolls on a Hani Hanir is attending classes at our facility, okay, to do what? To get a 737 sim ride. So we actually have all the evidence over there. But if you look here, how many hours he had? 250. And he enrolls on the course on 2000. So in 2000, he had just 250 hours. And they want to also ask to believe that, like we said, like the government says, he logged close to 600 hours. That's untrue. That's untrue. Otherwise, he would have had to fly almost every single day of the year, 2 hours of flight. And there are no records of that. So he enrolls on the course, and this is the funny thing. He even pays for it, okay? He gets 12 hours paid. This is the JetTech International Aviation Center, where they call the FAA 5 times to say that this guy doesn't have a freaking clue about English, even less about planes. And then these are the notes when he gets the check ride done. And I'm going to read this to you, and that's the last thing I'm going to read, okay? And it's really funny. I don't think you can read it. Hani Hanir, practice oral evaluation given. Student made numerous errors during performance problem, including a lack of understanding of some basic concepts. The same was true during review of system knowledge. So he doesn't have a clue on systems, doesn't know what an airplane is, and he doesn't know how an airplane flies and what you have to do to load an airplane and get it into the air. He says the root cause of is most likely due to the student's lack of experience. Oh, wow. Some of the concepts involved in large jet systems cannot be fully comprehended by someone with only a small prop plane experience. The lack of progress is not a question of knowledge as much as experience. Hani absorbed a great deal of information and is very intelligent, of course. But the more, but to move beyond the comprehension level, okay, Hani needs more experience to reach the application level. I doubt his ability to pass an FAA oral at this time. March 2001, okay? March 9, 2001, with 250 hours, real, 250 hours real, stated on his logbook and also on the application for this school. And he's going to get a test now again, okay? Not 600 hours, 250. In Hani's fourth sim session, we did pre-flight and normal start, hot start, takeoff, climb, departure, steep turns, stalls. These are all maneuvers that you train on the simulator, so that's great. It sounds like logical. And he was a rudimentary. He has a rudimentary level of ability based on his limited flight time. Again, he seemed unsure of procedures. Okay, so he will kill somebody, but not crossing the plane into the Pentagon, but just mainly, simply because he's going to cross the plane because he doesn't know what he's doing. Okay, and then
in some cases,
in some cases, he seems unsure of procedure in some cases and failed to properly identify and correct the hot start. Basic aircraft control was marginal. Basic aircraft control. I mean, this is not me making this up. It's a guy in 2001, in March 9, that is saying, and flight instructor saying, take this kid back to school because he doesn't know a thing about planes. And then I have to believe this. What is this? Somebody can tell me exactly what is this? You see the loan right in front of it? Not a single scratch? So I have to believe that a kid with 250 hours, I don't know what Emirates is doing, but they're losing a lot of money because they're asking for pilots to have 4,000 to roll in. I don't know what Jet 2 is doing, asking for pilots for at least 1,000 hours and 500 in time because they're wasting money. Because they could just place a kid with 250 hours, as Hani Hanir, as bad as he was, okay? It'll be cheap, but at least he will be able to fly the plane. Bullshit. He had to fly the airplane. And the last basically mile, he had to dive the airplane so that he would push, okay, the yoke of the airplane, the controls, and basically he will feel a force of G's. We talk about it today of about 9 G's for 1 second, for 2 seconds and 4 decimals, okay? So all the blood will go to his brain, and then pull of that plane to level off right above the grass, okay? Basically, 10 metros, that'll be about 30 feet, okay? 30 feet. It went down, felt 9 Gs, so he just almost, banged his head into the ceiling. Then he pulled up again, and then he felt 6 Gs, okay, enough for me to just fall asleep. And then he flew straight and level, basically, for half a mile without a scratch, at full speed, 800 kilometers, 500 miles, and then he crossed the plane into this hole. Absolutely, yes, I do believe it. And that, after this review.
And he missed all the lampposts.
Yeah, yeah. But remote control, I don't know. I just don't want to speculate, but I just want to go through the basics, okay? And I've been an instructor, and I managed to get a kid from Egypt that actually then later on was in jail, in question. And he flew about 40 hours. And I managed, without being able to, solo an aircraft, and a small one. And after 8 hours, I was able just to at least make him fly a flight pattern, okay? But that's, as good as it gets. You cannot do this in March, not understanding what you're doing, not being able even to identify your flight controls, and then flying an airplane like an experienced pilot. Well, thank you. That's it. Yep.
Think about this. Controlled demolitions cannot be engineered and rigged in a day. It takes months. And therefore, this event must have been planned in advance.
Keep your eye on that building. It'll be coming down. The building is about to blow up. Moving back. We are walking back. There's a building about to blow up.
Did they actually use the word brought down, and who was it that was telling you this?
The fire department. And they did use the word, we're going to have to bring it down. They did use it.
Well, everybody's quiet again, so I'm going to introduce Mitoa Edjang. He's the real...
I took people from, right from the beginning without, any knowledge, no knowledge at all of how to fly a plane, and got them to the point where, they could at least know what was going on if they stepped into a into the cockpit of a big airliner. I have to say something. Once you finish the basic training, you're nobody. Nobody wants you, and that's, where my story starts. And I don't buy it. These are the 6 points that I'm going to be talking about, basically. We're losing our grip of reality, and it seems like right now we are starting to get, we're all, I don't know, it's just crazy. And, the things that seem to be true right now, they're not true. Suddenly planes fly into buildings, and buildings collapse because of fire and because of planes. To the Spaniards, all the information that I get about 9/11 and about how governments, basically, like Rourke said, they don't, protect you. Basically, they're here to maintain the status quo. So that's what my the programs are all about. And the first thing that I, popped into my head when I was preparing the speech was that I don't buy it. I do not buy the story, the official story. Why? Because I do fly. Because I've been flying since I'm 18 years old. Right now, I have more than 12,000 hours in different types of airplanes. I taught people in the US. I got more than 20 kids to make their dream possible. That was to fly in a small airplane, which is a completely different story to fly a big airliner. And so I'm saying what I'm going to say right now, but I hope so. Well, I came prepared to give like a long speech in a detailed thing, and I think that the best thing I can do is just give you a different perspective of 9/11. 4 planes, and it seems like the best pilots got in the plane that crashed into the Pentagon. And I do not believe so, and that's why I'm here, and that's why I know Ian, and that's why in Spain I'm also giving speeches, and also in Spain after being really or getting really angry, I got my own radio show, and I'm doing right now then programs every Wednesday basically that I load into the internet, and in Spanish I'm giving.
He's an airline pilot. He flies heavies. Heavies are what they call the big sort of planes that were allegedly used on 9/11. Very, very different from small planes in every way. Mitoa, I'm just going to hand it over to you.
Okay. Well, first of all, I have to say I come from Spain. So although I spent many summers in Chester to learn English when I was small, and then I spent 5 years in the U.S. training as a pilot, my English is getting rough. So I live in Spain. I've been living for the past 13 years and flying for a major airline over there. I'm a captain right now since 6 years ago. So it seems like somebody trusts me. I don't know if they'll do after